Welcome to the Strategy Rewind Podcast. I am your host, Miguel Lebron. Here at the Strategy Rewind Podcast, we look at the relationship between goals, strategies, belief, and objective breakthrough. I'm so excited for today's episode. Hey, if we haven't met before, thank you for being connected here today. I am a father, a leader, an author, a strategy coach, and mentor, and I partner with individuals who have a goal but need a strategy. And in this podcast, we focus on the strategy to help you have a breakthrough moment. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Miguel, and I want to thank you so much for checking out today's podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by UME, United Marriage Encounter. My wife and I, several years ago, went to a United Marriage Encounter weekend. We loved it so much that we went again. And let me tell you something. It's amazing to be able to have the appropriate strategies to have that breakthrough moment. And I'm sure that if you're in a relationship, you want to continue to grow with that person, that significant other, and you want to continue to grow in the ability to communicate. Communication is so important. And there in the United Marriage Encounter weekends, you gain strategy for continual growth in communication. Strategies that we have been able to put together and has actually helped our relationship. Not just the relationship I have with my wife, but it's also helped relationships that I have with significant others and family members. So I want to encourage you to go to unitedmarriage.com. That's unitedmarriage.com, because there you can check out their calendar and find out events that may be taking place in your neck of the woods. Now, it's very appropriate that we speak about UME today, because today I want to talk a little bit about relationships. More specifically, how do we take a relationship that has grown stale into a more positive place? A relationship that maybe right now seems to be growing dry. How do we turn this thing around, right? There are relationships in our life that we have with individuals that just, unfortunately, it doesn't work out. I understand that. I'm sure you do too. We've had relationships with people that were toxic individuals, or individuals that simply had limiting beliefs. And if you wanted to grow, you understood that that relationship, well, it could no longer be in the forefront. And so what happens is that we have to say goodbye to those relationships. But there are other relationships that maybe because of a misunderstanding or different point of view or different perspective or unmet expectations, those relationships, for as beneficial as they are, they grow sour. And we often think, well, I have no relationship any longer with that person. No, you do. However, it's just not a healthy relationship. The question is, how do we turn it around? How do we take that relationship that was once thriving and mutually beneficial? How do we turn it around? Because now it's not. Now it's not in a good place. I recently was a guest on What's Your Story Live with Leilani Langdon. And there we spoke about my story. We spoke about my journey as childhood and all the way through to launching Miguel Lebron Coaching. I want to encourage you to check out the show notes, because there you're going to find information on her podcast, which, let me tell you, it's amazing, insightful conversations that you're really going to enjoy. And what I want to do today, though, is share with you a clip from the conversation I had with her, because in that conversation, I actually laid out a strategy that I used to rekindle the relationship with my father. My father, who was in and out of addiction, in and out of jail, and in and out of my life in my early years. Now we've been able to have a great relationship as he's been able to have personal growth, and I as well. But in that journey, there was some strategies I had to use in order to rekindle the relationship. And so here they are. These are the strategies that I used to rekindle that relationship that at one point was good and it drew sour, but now it's in a very healthy space. Again, this is a clip from the recent podcast episode of What's Your Story Live with Leilani Langdon. I'll see you on the other side. I would say that if you have some form of communication, maybe you have a phone number, or email, I would say start there. Start with an email. The email is so simple because it allows you the space to say what you want to say without being interrupted. Because oftentimes people say, oh yeah, I want to hear what you have to say. But then when you start talking, they start interrupting. Obviously in this setting, it works. Okay. In this
Yes.
setting, we dialoguing, but in a
Sure.
setting where it's so emotional, where it's so heavy, where
Yeah.
where you can cut the tension, it's like
Sure.
we need to allow each other space where you talk, I'll be quiet, and then I'll be quiet and I'll
Mm-hmm.
let you talk. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, because everyone, right, we're all emotional beings, because everyone's emotional and everybody wants to tell their side of what's happening. It's like, okay, I think starting with an email, which is something that I did, is like, okay, let me send out this email. That's going to
Yes.
open up the line of communication. When he reaches out, then we'll set a date, and then we'll go in there, and I can always go ahead and use the email as a point of reference. Hey, I said on the email this is what I mean. Let me bring further context to what I already said in the email. I
Yeah.
think that makes it so much easier. And then also being able to just go into it with no expectations. Because if you go in it
Mm.
thinking, oh, maybe this is the moment where he's gonna finally be the hero that I've been looking for, or maybe he's gonna be, I don't know, super dad or something. It's like, no, he's not. And my dad and I have a wonderful relationship, but we have a wonderful relationship in this stage in my life,
Yeah.
in my 30s. It wasn't great in my teens, but if I pull back to my teens, well, he wasn't there. He couldn't be there, XYZ
Yeah.
reason. And I think understanding where we are, okay, here's where we are. This is the
Yeah.
stage that I'm in. Can you
Sure.
be a dad here? And that's not gonna look like, that's not gonna look like what everyone else's situation looks like. And
Sure.
that's why, to me, strategy is so important, because strategy is a
Mm.
defined number of steps to help you have a breakthrough moment. And in order for
That's
us to implement
good.
strategy, you have to know where you are. And this is super important because, Leilani, you may be 10 steps closer to your breakthrough moment where I'm 5 or 20 steps away. And
Yeah.
it's like, if I stay here and compare, man, how come Leilani's so close to her breakthrough
Different.
moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Forget it. She's in her own journey. And so I
Yep.
think pulling back and being able to initiate a communication through an email and then go into it with no expectations, not comparing to somebody else, and saying, okay, this is my dad.
Yeah.
This is the relationship we have had, but what relationship could we have? Another thing is that oftentimes people say, well, there is no relationship. And they assume that because, well, we're not talking, that there is no relationship. No, we do have a relationship. It's just not a healthy one. Right. The
Mm.
only way I can't have a relationship with you is if I don't know you. If I don't know you at all, then how do I have a
Then there's no
relationship with you?
relation, right?
But if I know you, I have a relationship
Yes.
with you. It's either going to be a healthy one or a really bad one.
Right.
Right. And so I knew I had a relationship with him. It was
Yeah.
just a really sucky one. It was just a bad
Yeah.
relationship. And the only way to change that is to go in it with pure honesty, with no expectations, and being able to
Mm.
allow each other to say their side of the story. And so, pulling back to what I said further earlier, which is when he shared his story, that gave a whole lot of understanding to my story,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was almost like an oil spill of free will. His free will
Yeah.
just rolled over onto mine, where it shouldn't be, but it is. It just
Yeah.
happens, and
It
that's the
just
way life is.
happened.
But I would say, for those who are in the experience, go that.
Yeah.
Number one, start off with a simple communication, maybe
Sure.
via
Sure.
email.
Sure. Sure.
Number two, go into it with no expectation. Number three, don't compare either to the past or to others. We've often heard individuals say relationships are hard, and it is true. Relationships are hard. I think you would agree. I agree. Relationships are hard. Good relationships or bad relationships, healthy relationships or unhealthy relationships, they are hard. The thing is about defining hard. And when we talk about good relationships, they are hard. They are honorable. They are affectionate. They reciprocate and they are dedicated. That is a good relationship. That is a healthy relationship. But when we look at a bad relationship, which is also hard, it's not the same definition. Bad relationships are hard. They are harmful. They are abusive. They are roadblocks and they are disloyal. But you can choose your hard. You can choose how you want this relationship to be. You can choose that if you want to have an unhealthy relationship or if you want to have a healthy relationship. My mother would always say, Miguel, it takes two to tangle. And when we talk about a relationship, it takes two individuals coming together, giving 100%. There is no 50-50, because if all you're giving is 50, that means you got another part in reserve that you're not bringing to the table. It has to be 100% all in. I'm all in. Are you all in? That has to be the type of attitude. And as previously mentioned, as the relationship grows, you can then begin to define expectations. I want to thank you so much for being connected here today on this episode of Strategy Rewind Podcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, United Marriage Encounter, and encourage you to check out their website, because as I mentioned, they have events going on throughout the entire calendar year, and it may be in your neck of the woods. Of course, check out Leilani's podcast, What's Your Story Live, as she has powerful conversations. I'll connect with you on the next episode, but in the meantime and in between time, hit up my socials, man. Check me out, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm doing all of them. I'm there connected. Send me the friend request, or let's just connect here again on this podcast. Thank you.